Welcome to another episode of Flutter Original. So this time, we're talking about animations and Rive. So I have Gordon Hayes, developer relations at Rive app, and perhaps you know him because of Fun with Flutter YouTube channels and his amazing videos. So let's welcome Gordon. How are you today?
Hey Majid, yeah, I'm good. Thank you for having me, and thank you for the intro. Yeah, I'm glad to be on the show. How are you?
Very nice to have you here. Maybe for those who don't know you yet very well, uh, you need to have an introduction and tell you what you are, what you do. You know, go ahead.
Well, what I am is a person. Who I am, I'm Gordon. Um, yeah, I'm like you said, I'm developer relations. I'm working as a developer at Rive, and I've previously worked at Stream, so I'm sure some of the Flutter community is familiar with Stream, where I also worked as a DevRel. And yeah, my current job from 9 to 5 is to create awesome stuff with Rive. And if you're not familiar with what Rive is, then this will be the video for you where Majid and I will just do a quick walkthrough about what Rive is. Yeah, as for me, I've been doing Flutter for like 5 years now, 4 years, I don't know. And I started Fun with Flutter kind of just for fun and just as my own personal learning when I was doing Flutter development. And yeah, the whole point was to just share cool things that I was making. And it was definitely more of a hobby, and that hobby kind of led into me working full time as a Flutter developer, and now as a Flutter developer advocate. So I think that's the short version of it. Um,
That's good. So, Gordon, this show is going to be about Rive. So, for those who are not really familiar with Rive, I mean, tell us what it is. So, what kind of problem is going to solve?
so if you are older than 25, you may remember the days of Flash, and Rive isn't a replacement of Flash. It's basically similar to it. It's a way for you to do interactive animations in your applications. Currently, there is ways that you can have animations in your app if you didn't want to, hard code all of the logic yourself. The most popular version to do this is Lottie, and you would need to use Adobe After Effects, and then you can export it to a Lottie file. But that's essentially the same as playing a video. A Lottie file is a vector animation, and you can define a state from A to B, but what do you do in between those states, in between A to B? What happens if the animation needs to change? What happens if you need to interact with the animation? For example, press a button, or maybe it's a walk animation and then suddenly the character needs to jump. How do you smoothly transition between that? And that is at least my very basic description of what Rive is. It's a way for you to create these animations easily, and then more importantly, for you to run these animations wherever you are. So Rive supports a number of different runtimes. In today's video, we're going to be showing the Flutter runtime. Of course, we Majid and I are Flutter people, but you can do the same in iOS, Android, web. There's even some game development kits that are also now using Rive. And I'll share a bit more on that later and where you can find more information.
Mhm. So, when you say, just like have a little bit of clarification here. So, when you say we can interact with the animation, that means, let's say, I can actually create an animation from A to B, as you said, and then have other points in between, like, I don't know, A, B, C, D, E, whatever. And then on that point, I will be actually do something if it's needed, or even pause the animation at that point and do something and then continue. Is that like the way that it works?
Uh, To a degree, yes. I think a practical demo would probably be it, or
Absolutely.
better. In this example, you can see we have this plank with submit, and the moment you hover over it, it does this little bounce. And the point is that it will do this bounce no matter when you do it. So if I do it there, it's basically just interacting with its current state. And this is actually a very basic example. I'll show you a bit more. And it might actually be better for me to go into the editor and show you how the editor is set up to create something like this. How we refer to it in Rive, it's called a state machine. And similar to how we have this Flutter internal debate about state management, you can also do state in your Rive animations. And the dependence on that state trigger different animation behaviors. So as an example, in this app over here, it's probably not very user-friendly. You can't really see what you're typing. But if you wanted to, you can create these types of interactions with your Rive animations. And this one will basically do a transition. So now that after I've placed submit, it will go into a new state. And this will now finally say thank you for submitting your email. And yeah, that's I guess I'm not sure if I answered your question, Majid.
This is actually interesting. Like, of course, this is what I was asking. So one more question, and then maybe we should jump into pair programming. So these Rive animations that we create, perhaps like we go to Rive.app and to Studio and start creating them, right? So these are all vector-based, right? So means I can actually play them on any device, like from desktop, web, mobile, any size of device without sacrificing the quality, right?
Yes. So there's vector animations and raster animations. So Rive has support for you to do mesh transformations. And a mesh transformation would allow you to upload a static image. So that can be anything. We have really cool examples where people have created characters with Midjourney or some other AI tool. And using that, they then do mesh transformations on the character, for example, to make it look like the character is moving around. I think a good example for us would be to go to Rive community if you want to have an idea of like what you can do.
Okay, so I will put the Rive community link to the description so people can go there and take a look at them. But that's fantastic. So you showed me right now one example, the submit example, which was very nice. Quickly preview how it looks on the editor, like at least on Rive editor. So just quickly walk through on the editor, like how it looks like.
Yep, I can do that. We can also add for this particular animation, we recently did a live stream where the designer who made this, he walked through how to create this, or at least like the principles. I'm a developer. I'm not a designer. So I might not do it justice to explain exactly what's going on here. But the first thing you need to know if you've never used Rive before is that it has two different modes. It has a design mode and it has this animate mode. And the design mode will feel very familiar to you if you come from any vector-based tooling software. So if you've ever used Figma or if you've used even Photoshop, I would imagine, you have basically three different sides to your editor. You have the layout to the left, and sorry if you can't see. I'm running the macOS app here, so I won't be able to zoom in. But I want to say that as well. Our macOS app recently released, so if you haven't tried Rive on macOS, it's awesome. And if you don't know, Rive is made in Flutter. So this whole editor experience is in Flutter, the web app and the macOS app, and soon Windows app as well. So on the left here, you have your different shapes. So if I hide this, I'm hiding everything. Here we're hiding the plank. And this plank is a vector asset. and all of these are just vector assets. And this is something that I think also you should do from the beginning, is if you create your animations like this, or if you create your designs, to make use of the grouping functionality. As you can see, like all of the vector assets are grouped under Planck that is related to Planck. And why is that important? It's important because then in the animate mode, it becomes a lot easier for you to basically do a particular animation on all of these states. So in this instance where it's like doing this like zooming effect, you're applying the animation to the Planck group. And I wish I was better at the editor to actually demo this more. But you can see on the left, we have this series of animations. And it might be hard to see, but here is the star or the Planck idle animation. And this is just a basic example of an animation. So Planck idle, if I play this, you can just see it's just like basic movements for the Planck.
I see.
And in a similar way, we have the star idle, which does nothing. We have star pressed, so this over here. And if you press it, it does like a little bouncy. And to create this bounce effect, it's a matter of defining the scale. So for this instance, we are defining the starfish's scale, and the starfish is this group over here. And again, important when you do animations, you need to be in the animate tab. And then it's just a matter of like skimming the timeline and setting the size or the position or the rotation or the color, dependent on what you want to do. And a really neat thing is that you can do interpolations. So if you do animations in Flutter, you should never use curves.linear. It will look bad. You want to define some life to your animations. Nothing ever moves statically in position. You want to have like there to be like a speed up and a slow down. And Rive also has a graph editor. So as you can see, you have a lot of fine-grained control of what you want to do. Yeah, that's that's my very low level, or my basic understanding of the editor. I'm more familiar with the code.
But that's nice. But okay, so this is more of like probably a work for designers or motion graphicer, people, so that usually create these type of things. Of course, developers can do. I see it's pretty simple. I mean, it's not rocket science here. But
No.
after that, let's say now you want to explain about the states that you mentioned a couple of times. You say you show us where it is, and then maybe we should jump into the code and see how we can utilize those states.
Unfortunately, the states would be defined to the editor, at least for now. I'll talk a little bit about future plans for Rive, as what the roadmap is. But yeah, that's an excellent question, which is so what the state is referred to as the state machine in the Rive editor. So as you can see to the left here, where we have all of these animations. Also, there's a nice little quality of life improvement that is now in the UAT version. This is the prod version, that you can organize this in folders. And I'll touch on why that's important in a bit. But yeah, so here we have the ocean state machine, and it has like a little different symbol. And this is the way for you to mix and match these animations really easily, and to define listeners and inputs, and then for you to transition between these animations. So if we look at the ocean state machine, you can see we have a variety of different state machines defined here. Here's the Planck water, submit hover, and Planck, and we also have like the full one. So if I press play on this, it's now doing it for the Planck, and it's basically changing the states dependent on like certain conditions. So in this instance, when the is hover is triggered as an input, you can see it makes it is hover there. But let me pause this, and Yeah, so this is like the whole animation. So the way that you rig your animation like this is you define listeners and you define inputs. And if you want to learn more about this, the best place for this definitely would not be from me at this stage. The best place would be rive.app. So if you go to our website, you would see there's a learning section. And if you press the tutorials, it may be different by the time you look at this. This will take you to our website. But you can not website, sorry, we'll take it to the YouTube channel. But if you're new to Rive, go to the quick start section. And this is a series of different playlists that will help you with the beginning building blocks of Rive and how to use the state machine and how to rig up these animations. And in a little bit, I'm going to show you in a full-on game you can actually play that's all made in Rive. And it's
Nice.
pretty amazing that you can do, like, you don't actually need to do any code. But yeah, the best way to learn Rive, I would say, is interactively, experimenting, and blog posts are perfect for coding tutorials. But I think for something like Rive, a video tutorial is much better. So definitely check out the YouTube channel and check out this series of playlists here.
Very nice. I will put the link to the description. So if you want to take a look later, so you can just go and check out description and click and see what you can do with Rive on their YouTube channel and website. All right. So, Gordon, I think it's time to maybe now show us. Well, I created the animation, everything that you mentioned. Now I'm going to use it in Flutter. So maybe we should start from there. An example, how we can manipulate a bit of, not manipulate, like interact with this animation, as you mentioned, probably. Shall we do that?
Yeah, let's do that.
Well, usually this is like a pair programming style, and I will take over and do some coding here, and of course with your help. So let's do that. So, well, I guess I would suggest that we can start with your example, perhaps, and maybe you can explain a bit there and onboard me how I can use Rive in Flutter. So I was checking your package on pop.dev, and so, well, while I can go and clone your repos and examples and whatever, I think one simple way is now to just simply open these examples in Zap. Well, of course, for those who don't know what Zap is, it's just an online sandbox or online editor for building Flutter applications in browser. So you don't need to set up anything. I think we don't need to set up anything. I can quickly open. There is an interesting. So some people asked me in the comment in my previous video, how did you create this button here? So I don't have this button in my pop.dev. This is actually one extensions that Invertase has, or we have created, and we published on Chrome extension. So if you install Zap extension, you will have open in Zap in pop.dev, and you can just simply click and it will open up the examples in Zap without doing anything, as quickly as possible. And I see it's pretty fast too. Okay, so I'm here. So let me try to see if I understand, and you correct me, if everything goes the way that it should. So first of all, I believe we need to install, or we need to add like Rive to our dependencies, which is already here. So let me just zoom in one more. And that's it. So I'm just gonna go and, well, main, see, if I see here, let me just close maybe this page. Just gonna go to simple asset animation for now, just one of the page. So technically, I don't need to have a wrapper around my app or any widget. It's just a Rive animation for these type of animation, just to use like an image widget, right? And then load that. That's pretty much it, is it? As simple as that?
That is correct. So having it like simple like that, that this is the way that it basically does most of the work for you. Here's my file. This is the name. This is the name of the animation. In this instance, it's like automatically implying the first animation, but you can specify the animation name or the state machine name. But yeah, this does the work for you. So that if you just want to play something and you don't care about anything else, you just throw it like
Interesting.
that.
So then, like technically, the first animation right now, simple animation asset here. I just
Hmm.
click, then oh voila, that just loads Rive animation. That's it, right? So with this widget, Rive animation, can I still do extra stuff here? I don't know. Can I just handle some state, or you had another example that you've been showing that I can submit a button and show another things.
Yeah, that's a good question. So for that, you would need to delve a little bit deeper into
Okay,
the next phase. And I actually think these are probably not perfectly organized, but in the other examples, as we'll go to them, you'll actually see the code. And there's two ways you can do it. One that's easily, basically if you don't want a lot of code, and another way if you want a bit more control. And I'll tell you when you want the full control one.
I see. So okay. So which of these examples do you think I should start with to a little bit figure out how it works?
I would say, well, okay, so the simple network animation is exactly the same. The only difference is it's loading the animation from a
Yeah.
URL. So I would imagine you would use something like this if you had if you hosted a repository of animation somewhere, you can download it, the Rive file and play it like that. Um, or if it's a web app, it's definitely going to be loading over a URL anyway.
Okay.
So that's this example is exactly the same. I would then
I
go
have a
to the,
question here first. So
yeah.
these Rive animations, how big they are? I mean, in terms of size, are they
Yeah.
like 2 megabytes or a couple of kilobytes? Depends, of course, depends on the animation. I understand, but I mean, like this vehicle right now that we see. Let me just open up again the network. Okay, I see. This is fairly simple animation, right? So
No.
I wonder, like, how big is that? I mean, well, to me, maybe it's not fair, simple animation, but still, I mean, it doesn't have too many things around. Well, Gordon, I'm asking this size because I remember back in like you remind me about Flash. I actually created Flash stuff. I've done action script and so many things back then. Well, sorry, I'm old a bit, but um, back then I remember like we had so many problem with Flash after we creating such an animation, let's say with Flash. It was like a couple of megabytes and it was like so hard to ship. Like you need to, at the time with dial up and not a very good internet speed, you had to wait for Flash to load. And that was the reason I asked like how big this file is right now.
Yeah, that's a really good question. Yeah, not the experts on Flash, but yeah, it had a few problems. One being that you had to install it as a browser extension.
Oh yeah, of course.
So yeah, for you to run Flash, you would need to install it, give it permissions, which also resulted in a few security issues. Flash was fairly well known for being exploited in that way. And yeah, that's how Rive is different in the sense that the runtimes are open source and the code for those runtimes are open source. And it's just reading that Rive file, similar to how it would Lottie works, where you have like a series of instructions. It
Mm.
reads those instructions, and the Rive runtimes can execute those instructions. The actual Rive binaries are really small, and I just shared a link with you to a blog post that our CEO wrote comparing Rive and
Okay,
Lottie, and
let me
yeah,
just
that
open it.
that that will give you a good indication of like the the size of a Rive animation.
Interesting. I will leave this link to the description so people can, or everyone who is interested, to just take a look at this example. I see. Interesting.
Yeah, so the real numbers, that's the interesting part. So you scroll up a little bit. So, for example, this instance, the Rive file is 18 kilobytes, and the
Wow,
Lottie
this
version would
is
be a 180. Yeah.
wow, this is fantastic. I mean, it says no compression, so I assume after compression it's even lower. But even without that, like 18 kilobyte, it's nothing. So it's fantastic.
Yeah, no, the runtime is doing really well at like keeping the file sizes small, and that's top priority for engineering. And in the short time that I've been there, I've noticed that's come up a few times where suggestions for new features, it always gets weighed upon, is it worth adding this new feature if it would increase the actual binary size, or
Mm,
the actual final runtime size that you need to import as a package into your Flutter app. For
I
example,
see.
the Flutter version is using Skia to render all of these uh, animations. So technically, for these Flutter runtime, if you import Rive, you're not adding that much to your package size because Skia is already there. But maybe for iOS as an example, where we also use Skia, but that's going to change soon. That actually adds like a little bit of overhead. So
I
it's
see.
something that's we're very conscious about. Is like keeping sizes small.
Small. Okay. Well, interesting. Okay, so let's move on to another example here. Let me just go back. You mentioned that I can open
I would say
maybe
the play
button
pause animation.
play pause
That
on it.
would be,
This
yeah.
one.
It's a simply now you can pause the animation. If you sorry, it might not be in like at the bottom right. There's a
Oh
pause
yeah,
button.
there you go. Uh-huh. Okay, let's take a look at the code here. So I like to see how it works. So just gonna go to
I
play pause. Okay.
This was actually the first thing that I did was clean up this example repo bits, but I still want to do a bit more. The long-term plan is to create a really cool interactive example. So something that's the whole app is basically Rive, and it's just wild.
No, it's very nice. Looking forward to that. I take a look at this here is like, okay, we're gonna have just a stateful widget because probably we're gonna play with the state, which is expected. And then simple animation. Is this something that I see here? Okay, so we still have Rive animation. And oh, you pass a controller here. And you can pass like multiple controller here, which is interesting. You can have an array. Hmm.
Yes. Okay,
I
so
see.
I think technically that on init is maybe not even necessary, but okay. So this one you can see it started to get a bit more complicated, but you can simplify this a little bit as well. But if you scroll to the top, Rive has this series of animation controllers, and I guess this evolved as Rive evolved as well. And it especially evolved with the introduction of the state machine.
Mm-hmm.
But to give you an idea, if we were to open the editor now, during the editor, you would normally have like this cycle of like when you look at your animation, you can play your animation from start to finish and it stops, or you can loop your animation. And that is essentially the difference between the two animation controllers that there is. There's a simple animation which just plays the animation, and then a one-shot animation that animation controller that just plays it from start to finish and it's done.
I see.
And depending on your scenario, you might want to just play an animation from start to finish and you're done.
Mhm.
In
Is
this
this
one,
any
it's
place
used.
that I can see all the animations type, like in Rive? Like if I click on the source code, can I see that? No, probably not. But it would
Yeah,
be
I mean,
interesting
you
to see like how many types of animation we have. We have one simple animation which I understood. Any
mhm.
other type?
Yeah, there's a one-shot animation, which I think we'll see in a bit, and then there's a
Okay.
state machine controller. I would say probably with the introduction of the state machine and like the way that we would want you to use Rive,
Mm-hmm.
you would very, very probably not want to use these simple animations. Not that you don't want to. Like there would be a reason to. If you were to just pass in your file name to
Mm-hmm.
Rive, the Rive widget, it would automatically create the correct animation controller depending on what's available.
I see.
Um, but yeah, if you want to actually control the animation at like a level where you're playing it or pausing it, or you're triggering some event that's happening, which we'll see in a bit, then you'd need to access these controllers like this.
I see.
Yeah,
So, can I ask a question here just to understand? So, while this is the simplest one, I think we need to understand this and then move on. So, I see that now animation name is required here, or we need to pass it. I see this idle also on the editor. Is this related to that, or is it like a random name?
no. So if you remember when I shared the demo and
Mm-hmm.
the editor was open, and to the left it had that list of animations and it had the state machine.
Mm-hmm.
All that list over there had like a series of names. So
I
you
see.
can pinpoint that animation depending on the name. It just so happens that idle is the default animation created the moment
I
you
see.
start a new Rive project.
Okay, so
And
technically, then, if I understood correctly, let's say if I place an animation name which is already in the studio, let's say, when I say play or pause, actually this controller is just affecting on that particular animation, right? So in this case, ideal is default and we're passing ideal as well, and then it just do this, right? So if I, like, let's say, if there was a name for just this wheel, what, for
mhm,
example, wheel one. If I
yeah,
pass wheel one here and I say play pause, this one only doesn't work. Like, oh, I mean, it will stop.
yes, that is
Oh,
correct.
okay, okay,
But the gotcha, well, not gotcha, but like if you scroll down, you'll see the where you pass in the controllers. Here we're passing in that controller. And in this instance, the controller is the simple animation for the idle state. If you pass in the simple animation for the wheel one, only wheel one is going to play. You'll also need to say, hey, play the whole animation. But here's
okay,
also the controller for wheel one. I want to pause wheel one if you want to.
okay. But then, last question here. So that technically, I can have, let's say, these are four wheels, one, two. Let's say these two. I can say animation controller one, wheel one, and animation controller two, wheel two, and then pass two controller here. When I pause, actually two wheels only will stop, like two animations. All right,
Exactly.
that's the reason we have a list of controllers here because we have like different animations. And okay, now I understand.
I do want to say though that so this is the point where I'm sure developers and designers love communicating together, but this is that point where you need to define like what is it I want to do, what kind of logic should live in the Rive animation, and what logic should I control as the developer. If there is like this situation where you want to for some reason stop the front right wheel, you
Mhm.
can do it in code. I mean, like we demoed here, but it's becoming a little bit verbose in the sense that okay, so now I need two animations and I need to stop this animation but continue playing that animation. That's where the state machine comes in, and you can maybe define like an input, and that input can be a boolean or it can be a trigger, and the boolean would have a true or false, and the trigger would just fire, and like each time it fires, it does like something. So let's say you had like a Boolean field for like, is front wheel active? In the state machine, you would then define that if that Boolean is true, then you don't play the front right wheel animating. And then from your code, we'll see the state machine controller in a bit. You just fire that input. You're like, fire, stop, front right wheel. And then the animation takes care of it. And the code is a little
Okay.
bit cleaner.
Okay, okay. That's very nice point. All right. Let's move on then. You said maybe I should play one-shot animation. So this is another type that you mentioned.
Yeah. So yeah, play one shot animation. That's going to be the other type of animation that we talked about. Um,
Okay, let's see first of all what it is. Okay, this is so cool. Bounce. All right. Oh, that's very nice. I mean, how cool it is.
yeah.
Okay. So let's see. Let me see if I understand the code and ask you a few questions. So then again, we have a stateful widget, which is expected. And this time we have another type, which is one-shot animation. And still we have animation name, which I believe it's, again, as we discussed, it's an animation name defined in the Rive. And then, oh, this time it's a bit different. So I pass not only the controller, but also two names for animation, probably. Yes.
So this is simplifying like the logic for you a little bit. So instead of you creating all the controllers for the animations you want to play, if you always want to play idle, then you can just pass in the name, and it will do the magic for you. So you can actually change this a little bit. So I want you to remove the curves part in the animations list.
Yes, of course. Okay, so if I do that now and I save it, that's good for everyone who is watching this right now. It's actually gonna go and fork this repo to my zap. So if you see right now, the URL is zap.run pop/Rive, which is just directly importing from Rive. But now, if I hit the button, so it will just go ahead and fork this project. You see that the fork is also kind of right now disabled. And then I get a new URL, which is a zap URL, and that's what you see. In this case, you can edit anything right away and get
That's so
your
cool.
version. So now I actually have idle here and build is done. Go here. I removed curve. Oh, cool. That's different.
Yeah, well, yeah. What it removed is that curve part, like the van
Yeah, I
going
see
left,
that.
right, left, right.
Yeah, it was
So,
going all the way. Like, yeah, I see that. So this animation is affecting. I thought that this is affecting actually the state, not. Oh, even that one. So let's actually bring this back. I want to compare quickly. So what? So do you mean like now? Again, these idle and curves and whatever, these are defined in the animation, right? That's why it's working. Like I cannot randomly pass like bounce and it doesn't work, right? So it must be defined, or is it like a list of animations that we do have, regardless of the binary that is here? Let's say.
no, no. So for this particular animation in the editor, there's a series of animations defined. There's one that's called idle, which is just driving. There's one that's called curve, and the curve would make the car go left and right.
I
And there's
see.
one that's called bounce, and the bounce makes it bounces. In this instance, we are telling it to always play idle, always play curve, and do a one-shot animation bounce when I click the button. I click the button, one shot, bounce, stop. And like otherwise, if you wanted to have it bounce the whole time, you could by not doing a one-shot animation.
Oh, you mean I mean, oh, I understand now. Like technically, let's say it could be another animation here, one shot, let's say bounce. And if I have that here all the time, it's bouncing, let's say.
I think it should work if you scroll up to the init state. What's the name? Okay, bounce. Yeah. What you can do is scroll down. This might look silly.
Yeah, go here and just add it here, right?
Add bounce and then remove the controller.
Yeah, so in this case, then it's always bouncing, right?
I believe so. It might not, because in the editor, this is an important thing to note, is you can define whether an animation will loop or whether it will play again and again. It's going to bounce the whole time. If
Hmm.
if it is only set as a looping animation. In this instance, I guess it's not set as a looping animation in the editor. So that's why it doesn't do that.
Hmm.
But yeah,
But
that's
wait a second. It
the gist.
actually did. It seems because it's a one shot, and so it does, but just once, not more than that, because it's not
Yeah.
looping. Oh,
Yeah,
okay,
that's
that's
like one
interesting.
button you click in the editor to be like, this is a looping animation.
So, like to be okay again, I'm just gonna remove everything and then try again. So now I remove the bounce. So in the beginning, when I enter to the page, so it should not bounce.
Yeah.
So which is I think expected. And it's so again, so it's because the bounce it's a one-time, let's say, animation. Yeah, it doesn't. That's interesting.
Yeah.
So
But
nice.
I hope you can see like how this is becoming. It's I mean it's still easy to do, like you defining your names and like you can mix your animations, but this is where that state machine comes in, where you're like, here's the state, play the state, and it's like the designer can define these rules. So the
Absolutely.
designer doesn't need to mess around with like, okay, this animation, this animation. It's more like, here's the rule for the whole state machine, and if this thing happens, do this. And it
Hmm.
allows you to do cool things.
Yeah, makes sense now. I mean, the more I understand, the more it makes sense why we have a state machine at this point. So should we go then maybe to button state machine, or I don't know,
Sure.
whichever.
Um, So
Okay.
this one is, I think, very similar. The only difference is the actual interaction events are now going passed down to the Rive animation, and what this means is that the actual Rive animation has these listeners built in. So from like a coding perspective, what we are doing as Flutter developers, but we're not technically doing it. The Rive animation widget is handling that logic. Is we're taking our pointer location on the screen
Hmm.
and it's calculating the position of that dependence on the animation. And in the editor, you can define rules, listeners. So you can say, if it's hovering over this area of the animation, do this thing. And in this instance, it's saying, when you hover over this animation, go into that hover state. When you tap the animation, I think this doesn't have a hover state, but if you tap the animation, do this particular thing.
Hmm.
So if you look at the code, there's
Yeah,
basically no tap logic on the screen here. It's all handled in the Rive animation.
it's interesting. It's a bit different. I see that. So, well, again, this is a stateful widget, which is expected, and then we have an state machine controller in this case, and so you're also loading that differently from root bundle load. Okay, they're here, and then you do like Rive file import. Why this is different this time?
Um, it's a so I want to preface this by saying that these examples are also meant to illustrate how to use the code. It's not always going to be necessarily the easiest way you can do something for a particular situation,
Hmm.
which maybe we should revisit on how we do it. But this is showing you a bit more of the lower level. How do I access the inputs that are defined in my animation file? So as I mentioned, this animation has like a variety of inputs. It has hover and press. And how do you, as a coder, get access to those hovers and those presses? And there's a few ways you can do this. One way would be for you to compile the Rive well, not compile it, but to basically read the Rive file. From the Rive file, get the artboard, and the artboard is something that's not native, but like it's exposed through Rive, and the artboard is basically the area of the editor where you create your content. And in a Rive file, you can have as many artboards as you want,
Hmm.
and you load an artboard by its name. In this instance, we're loading the button artboard. You can see the second argument we pass in is called button. And now we want to create a controller from that. Oh, sorry, not the. It's sorry. The button is the name of the state machine controller. Sorry. It's load. This probably just has one artboard, but if you wanted to, you can load an artboard based on its name. Here we're getting file.main artboard. So this controller is the big brother to the simple animation controller and the one-shot controller. This is now the state machine controller, where you give it inputs and you do interactions on that. And there's two cool things that the controller allows you to do, is get these inputs and then trigger these events, and also to subscribe to what animation is playing. And depending on what animation is playing, you can do some logic in your code if you needed to. So yeah, if you scroll down, oh yeah,
I see.
okay.
I see that now we have, in fact, this time, because we have the artboard, we can actually load the artboard with Rive widget instead.
Yeah, so I'm a liar because I said this thing does all of the logic for you. Technically it does, but this example shows you how you can build it yourself. So what this thing is doing, it's wrapping it in a gesture detector. And like when you tap that gesture detector, it's setting the input values to true, false, false. So whether it's like, playing a certain value, yes or no. Is this active, yes or no? If you wanted to, this example would work as well if you did not use the Rive widget, but instead used Rive animation, and then you pass in the state machine name. So if you
so like the previous example, we load the Rive animation with network or whatever widget that we had, and then pass instead a state machine. Okay, that's interesting. So I don't really need to do all of these logic, in fact. I mean, I can if I need more access, but I don't need to. Okay, that's interesting. Do you have an example right now? We can take a look, maybe?
Yes, yeah. It's probably going to be the simple state machine.
There you go.
Yeah. So, sorry, don't look at the init state, but yeah, look at that. Here you can see what this thing will do actually is it will automatically infer the state machine, but you can give the state machine name if you need to. So if you
I see that here. So you have this controller from artboard, which is passed on init. So then this is a name, probably Bumpy. I mean, let's take a look at simple. Yeah, this one. Okay. Interesting. When I tap, then it just bump.
Yeah, if you tap the car, yeah.
Yeah,
I think if you tap anywhere outside of the car, it won't bump. Oh no, it does. Okay, that means just the area is set for that.
Wait a second. No, it does.
But that's like you define that's in the editor. So here it's probably like the whole screen wherever you tap,
Yeah, you're right.
But so what's happening here is that you're calling on init. So the moment the Rive animation initializes, you get the artboard. And from the artboard, you can then get the state machine controller. And then you do this because you want control over the state machine. Maybe you don't want control. Maybe the control is handled for you automatically and you don't need to do anything. But in this instance, you want that kind of control because now we're basically saying for it again, there's a gesture detector. That's when you tap that gesture detector. Sorry, so I was wrong again. None of these animations seem to be doing it with just pure Rive.
But
when we go back to the list, I'll see if I find
that
something.
with pure Rive. I actually understood that. So this is so interesting. So it will simplify somehow. I mean, depends on what you want to do, but if it's handled in Rive and the code is simpler, then I think it's interesting to see. Like I just load this and everything else is handled somewhere here on the Rive animation. This is interesting.
I think actually this should work. I haven't looked into this, but I'm just taking a guess. If you go back to that one we just saw, the simple animation.
Simple animation. There you go.
Yeah, so just go to the code. Maybe this will take too long. So I'm just going to give like the explanation. You could remove that gesture detector at the bottom.
This one, yeah.
Yeah, and then in the Rive animation, but you don't have to remove it now. In the Rive animation, there's also a field you can pass that's an array. called state machines, or state machine controller, if I remember.
Okay.
And that is going to allow you to give the name of the state machine. And in this instance, the name of the state machine is bumpy. So it will then automatically like do that for you. In the
Okay,
previous
I see.
button thing we saw as well, you can just give the name of the state machine and then Rive does that for you. If you actually go back to the previous example, the example state machine we had.
Again, one question before we move. So this state machine here, a list of a string I see.
Yeah. The
Again, these
names.
are coming from that like studio that we've seen, like a list of name for state. Okay. So there's always like an ongoing maybe communication between designer or whoever is working with studio and developer, right? So this must be clarified. So you can't randomly just place something here. But one question, is that possible like in a previous example, because we're like getting low level access to the data, is it like possible to get a list of state names or animation names and so on? So we like really don't. Let's say if I don't want to talk to any designer and I got a Rive animation, can I just guess at least see the list and maybe try myself and see if it works? Like for example.
Yes, you can. Before I worked at Rive, I worked on a project that I needed to do exactly that. So you can, when you load this file, I wouldn't be able to give you the code from the top of my head, but it's essentially just it's like read the file and get the list of animations. So if
I
you need
see.
to, you definitely can. But this is something that's planned for the future. And like as you can see, you can do this. There can be this handoff between, oh, hey designer, would you please call this is pressed? And then when I press give that input, I want you to do that. Or it could be the designer's like, yo, this is what this file can do. What do you want me to name it? So there is going to be that collaboration. But
That's nice.
the next level for us, and this is something that's on the roadmap, is a feature called data binding.
Mhm.
And this would basically take this to the next level, where it's not just defined on like what the name of an animation is, but it's a way for you to map certain events to stuff that happens on Rive. And this could also allow you to do hot swapping of assets and hot swapping of maybe colors. So imagine an example where you had a character and he had a hat, and the hat's color is blue. With this kind of data binding, it would basically be an extra generated file or an extra thing that's available on your Rive file that gives you access to all of the data easily defined by the Rive file, and also say what kind of data you can change. I want to change the color of the hat with code. Here, use this color. And then, it hot swaps the color like that.
Oh, that's
Or if it's a
fantastic.
mesh with an image, don't use this image, use this image. Kind of like that.
Okay, very nice. Well, Gordon, I think we can go all hours and hours talking about this. And it was very fun. And I didn't notice we were talking around 50 minutes so far. So, yeah, well, I mean, I think it was super interesting to me. Thank you very much for joining and walking me through Rives. At least I have a good understanding right now. Next time I got a Rive animation, how to work with it, load it, and maybe even get some low-level access to data, binary data,
Yeah,
which you
definitely.
walked me through. This is so interesting. Please promise to come back to this show once more and maybe show us more example and maybe advanced examples. So I think this is just the beginning right now for me or for everyone who is watching. And hopefully next time we'll have a better, or not better, like more advanced scenario. But before we end, last words. If you want to say anything right now about Rive, roadmap, or even your personal plan, like YouTube, whatever, this is your chance to say everything you want to say to our viewers.
Awesome. Yeah, no, definitely the time flew by. And that's kind of how I find my day-to-day life now working with Rive. It's like oh, 4 hours has passed. I'm still playing with this animation. um, but yeah, the roadmap's really exciting. I would like to say that if you want to find out, what's it's coming up, I would join the Rive Discord. That's the best place for you to actually, make your opinion heard, see what's on the roadmap. You can even vote for your favorite features. So yeah, Majid, you can maybe just add that to the description or something like
I will
that.
add that to the description.
And the last thing that you can share is I just sent you a link. It's called, we just made a repo for Awesome Rive. And this is the, if you're a coder, this is the Rive list for you, where you can basically see some examples of what we've made and what the community has made. And this will give you different runtime examples. So definitely check this here. There's also a section with more advanced examples. And definitely, Majid, like there's so many cool things that I have planned to do with Rive, especially with the Flutter runtime. So I'd love to come back and show you more integrate examples.
Well, thank you very much. You're always welcome to this show, and looking forward to the next one that we're going to do together. So thank you very much once more, and thank you for watching this video, and see you in the next video. Thank you. Bye.